C6 Corvettes are very reliable sports cars, but there are a few common issues that pop up from time to time. One such issue happens to be the shifter cable for C6s that were equipped with automatic transmissions. What happens is, over time, there are little bushings located in each end of the cable that tend to deteriorate. This is a shifter cable I removed from a C6 just a few days ago, and the problem is, due to where it's located in the car, it is virtually impossible to inspect the condition of these little bushings. And so unfortunately, it is not uncommon for the bushings to deteriorate to the point where they crumble and fall out, leaving you stranded. When this happens, that gear selector that used to work so well is pretty much no longer connected to your transmission, and hopefully you have AAA. So in this video, we're going to take a quick look at what it takes to replace this inexpensive cable, minimizing the chance that it ever leaves you stranded.
Toys for life.
Here's our volunteer. It's a 2007 C6 Corvette. And starting from the rear of the car, this one has a unique exhaust system, by the way. And moving towards the front, we're going to have to lower the mid-pipe so that we can remove the aluminum tunnel plate and all 500 of its little bolts. The reason being is that the front of the cable attaches to a bracket and to the shifter right above this general area right here. And as mentioned, it's not even visible at the moment. You can, however, see the rear of the cable. It's right up here, so that's a little bit of good news. So the first order of business is to try to remove the mid-pipe, and so I have the 4 nuts at the front of the mid-pipe soaked with penetrating fluid, as well as the nuts that attach the mid-pipe to the axle back exhaust. The nuts up front came off without issue, which is always a good thing, as did the nuts in the middle that attach the exhaust to the torque tube with springs. But even when loosened, the mid-pipe didn't want to release from the axle back, so I'm going to leave it in place and leave the mid-pipe lowered and supported with a stand. Now it's time to remove the tunnel plate and all of its bolts and set it aside. Now I'm at the rear of the car, looking up at where the cable connects to the transmission, and looking up a little bit further, the cable goes through a metal bracket that is bolted to the transmission. The first step is to remove this metal clip by using a flat blade screwdriver and prying it to the left. Then you pinch the end of the cable with a pliers to get it to release. Here's a look at the very same cable mounted in a vise so you can see what I'm doing. Just pinch it and then slide it to the left and it will release from the bracket. Then the end of the cable, which is snapped onto the transmission shift lever, can be popped off again easily by using a flat blade screwdriver. Moving towards the middle of the car, here is the front of the cable where it connects to the shifter by simply being snapped onto the little ball located at the end of the shifter assembly. And here's where the stationary part of the shifter cable connects to the bracket that holds the cable housing securely in place. To remove the front of the cable from the shifter, simply use a flat blade screwdriver to pry the front of the cable away from and off of the little ball at the bottom of the shifter assembly that it snaps onto. Here's a close-up view of the little ball I'm talking about that's located at the bottom of the C6 automatic shifter assembly. And here's a close-up of the end of the cable that snaps onto that little ball. To remove the part of the cable that's being held in place by the bracket, use a long screwdriver and a hammer to give it a pretty good hit pretty much straight up, and that'll pop it out of the U-shaped bracket. Now when we hit this cable to get it out of the bracket, it does damage the part of the cable housing right here by gouging the plastic, but it's no big deal because this one's getting tossed. The reason we have to hit this cable and knock it out of the bracket is because things are so tight under the car where this is locked into that metal bracket, and it is locked in place by this little clip on top of the cable, and it's virtually impossible to see it from underneath the car, and it's even more difficult to get your fingers on it, yet alone any sort of a tool. Here's the little clip right here that I'm talking about. To release it, you need to pry it up slightly and then slide it back. This allows the plastic sides on the cable to flex inward. And of course, this is very easy to do with the cable mounted in a vise, not so easy to do with the cable mounted in the C6. Now the cable can be gently slid towards the rear of the car, pulling the cable back by the transmission, and then with the other hand kind of prod and push the cable up to make sure it doesn't catch and get stuck as you're pulling it out the rear of the car. The new cable comes inside this small box for packaging purposes, and unfortunately this means when you remove the cable from the box, it's going to want to retain this curved shape. So if you're able to spend a little bit of time straightening the cable, more than I'm doing right now, maybe even hang it overnight so that it ends up straight, that'll pay dividends and make it a lot easier to slide the cable up into place where it ultimately will go. I recommend you start the installation of the new cable by fishing it up along by the rear of the transmission and slide it in and guide it along the driver's side of the torque tube until the front part of the cable is near the shifter assembly and the bracket that attaches to the cable. When installing the new cable, you drop this part of the cable into the bracket that's shaped like a U, and the plastic sides flex to clip it into place. Then by sliding the clip forward, it locks those flexible sides on the cable's housing so they can no longer flex inward. And that is how the cable stays locked inside of the bracket. This can be done from underneath the car if you're careful. Like I said, you have to get the cable lined up in that C-shaped bracket and get it in place. And then with your other finger, you have to reach up here towards the top and press this little clip in place, which locks the cable into the bracket. At this point, I'm about 85% sure the cable is locked into the metal bracket securely. To get to 95%, I put a little upward pressure on the cable to make sure it doesn't just pop out of that bracket. If it does, it wasn't clipped in properly. If you happen to have a bore scope, now would be a really good time to feed its little magic end up and get a good look at the top of that clip to make sure it's in place. And that's exactly what I did. Here's the actual footage that I got by using the bore scope, and from it I can clearly see that that little clip is slid forward and locked into place. That makes me happy and gives me confidence to send it out the door knowing that it's not going to come apart. Now using just my two fingers, I can usually push the end of the cable onto that little ball at the bottom of the shifter assembly and snap it into place. Now moving back towards the rear of the car, mark the part of the cable that has this little bump out with something white, because as you're looking up under the car, this is going to be difficult to see, and you need to see where this bump out is, because then you're going to fish the cable through the C bracket, and you need the little bump out to be aligned with the open part of the C, and then you're going to pull the cable and snap it into place in that C bracket, and that makes it so these little plastic tangs snap back out, securing the cable to the bracket. Then making sure the cable is well lit from underneath, grab that metal clip with a pen magnet and position it so that it's underneath those little plastic tangs, and then push it into place. Now make sure the transmission shift lever inside the car is in the neutral position, and then at the transmission, make sure the little lever is pushed all the way back, and then move it forward 2 clicks.
So that's park, as far back as it goes. Reverse, neutral.
That means the transmission is in neutral as well. And finally, I can press the female part of the rear cable onto the little ball on the transmission shift lever with 2 fingers and snap it into place. Then we can remove this little red plastic cover and push this little locking tab into place. It's this little locking tab that essentially makes sure the cable is exactly the right length. Now when it comes to replacing or being preemptive about your shifter cable, you can either replace the little bushings that go on each end of the shifter cable. In fact, C&S Corvettes has them on their website. I think they're about $35. Or if you prefer, you can replace the entire cable like we did in this video. And Summit carries GM cables, and as of the date of this video, they're about $55. Now go ahead and reinstall the tunnel plate and all of its little bolts, being sure to use a proper torque wrench. And finally, reattach the exhaust mid-pipe, being sure not to over-tighten its nuts. That's going to do it for this one, guys. If you learned anything in the last 8 minutes, click that thumbs up below so YouTube knows to share it with the Corvette community. Consider subscribing so you don't miss the next video. And most of all, thanks for watching.